Hi, I'm Cliff, N4CCB. In this video, we're going to talk about Winlink. Now, Winlink is a digital mode, and I'm going to cover 4 digital modes. This is the first one. Winlink is really important because it lets you use amateur radio to send and receive emails anywhere in the world without being connected to the internet. So I'm going to talk about what Winlink is, why it's important, how it works, what you need to be able to run Winlink, and then I'll crank up the computer and show you how to use Winlink in real time. So let's get started. So as I said before, Winlink is a system. Now it's a worldwide system. No matter where you are in the world, whether it's the North Pole, whether it's a desert, doesn't matter, you will be able to connect to one of the Winlink nodes somewhere else in the world with HF radio. There are other ways to connect, like packet through VHF or UHF, but this video is going to just focus on HF. So imagine there's been a natural disaster, like a tornado or earthquake. The infrastructure has been taken down, so nobody's got internet access, nobody's cell phones are working anymore, and you, as a conscientious ham radio operator, you've got your radio and microphone, and you can set up a station somewhere and talk to someone else on the outside of the region and communicate. But what if you had a cable like this that's got Anderson power poles on one end and alligator clips to connect to a battery, car battery? And what if you had a netbook or a laptop and a signal link? Now, with these things, you can access the Winlink system to send and receive email to your family and loved ones to let them know how you're doing. Also your neighbors, friends, and family to let them know what their status is. You can also contact disaster relief agencies. Not only can you send emails, but you can also attach spreadsheets, text documents, and even pictures. Although this is a slow method of communication, so you'll need to resize those images to where they're not megabytes large. So that's what Winlink can do for you. It can turn you into somebody who can go into a natural disaster and be very helpful and get the word out of what kind of supplies are needed or who's injured and what kind of help is needed. So in that regard, to me, Winlink is the most important digital mode. Now, I happen to be familiar with it because I belong to an ARES group, and in our local ARES group here, Phil Sherrod, W4PHS, who's one of the software developers of Winlink, is a member of our group. And so I've heard Phil talk about Winlink, and all of us in the group can deploy Winlink stations. So it's being used all over the world. It's used heavily by sailors on the high seas to send and receive email. Used by all kinds of MCOM agencies, used by NGOs like Red Cross and so on. So a lot of government agencies have Winlink stations. So it's a great thing to learn, and you're going to learn it today. So how does it work? Well, Winlink is a 3-tiered system. At the bottom level, the client tier, that's where you and I live. We have radios connected to computers that can transmit out somewhere in the world via HF. We can run the specialized Winlink software called RMS Express, and we can compose emails. We can also send those emails and receive any emails that are waiting for us. So that's the bottom tier of the 3-tier system. Now, who are we talking to on our radios? Well, we're talking to the middle tier, and the middle tier are radio message servers, or RMSs. RMSs are unattended stations. It's people just like you and I who have decided that we're going to dedicate a radio and a station for Winlink. And the radio is just sitting there 24 hours a day, waiting for somebody like us to connect with it. And once we connect with it, that station contacts through the internet the top tier, which are common message servers, or CMSs. So there are 5 common message servers. There's 2 in the United States, 1 in San Diego, 1 here in the Nashville area where I live. There's 1 in Nova Scotia, there's 1 in Austria, and there's 1 in Australia. They're all mirror images of each other, and anytime data is written to one of them, it's immediately replicated around the world so that they always stay in sync. If only one of the CMSs is operational, then the system's operational. So there's great redundancy built into the system, and it's very robust. It's got an uptime that's 99.99 something percent for the last 10 years. So all we have to do is to connect with an RMS node. Now, there are radio message servers, RMSs, all over the world. There are hundreds of them. So as I said earlier, no matter where you are, propagation is going to allow you to connect to one of those guys. Now you're going to see when we run the software that it shows you, based on your location and the time of day and the frequency, it's going to predict which nodes you have the most favorable conditions with. So you might have to work your way down the list until you connect to one, but you most assuredly will connect to one. It might take you a number of tries to get one that you can reach, but once you do, you send your messages to the RMS. The RMS forwards that up to the common message server and checks to see if there are any messages waiting for you. If so, it downloads them and then sends them to back to your radio where it's processed on your computer. So what do you need to start this? Well, hopefully you've seen my other video called Getting Started with Digital. And the Getting Started with Digital Modes video shows you what's needed to do any digital mode. And Winlink is one of those digital modes. As long as you have a computer connected to your radio with the audio in and out of the computer and the radio doing their thing, either directly with cables or through an external sound card box like the SignalLink, that's what you need to get started. Now, like all the digital modes, you have to have some kind of software running on your computer. And with Winlink, there is a program called RMS Express that you can get from the winlink.org website. So the first thing you need to do is to go to winlink.org. Once you get there, at the top of the page, there's a link that says, getting RMS Express. So you're going to download that. You're going to install it on your computer. That's all I want to talk about right now. So let's fire up the software, and I'll kind of talk you through how to use this. And then we'll see if we can talk to somebody, see if we can get a message through and get a reply back. Well, here we go. Okay guys, before we get started here with the software, I just want to show you my setup. I don't normally use my KX3 for digital, so I've just kind of hastily put it up here. Pardon all the clutter here. So here's my KX3. Now, in full disclosure, I have an Elecraft 100 watt amp back here that is turned off, and it will remain turned off. I'm using the KX3, so you'll know that I'm actually doing this with a QRP radio, and I'm not cheating. Here is a SignalLink box connected to the KX3. There's my audio recorder that's recording what you're hearing. And then here's my laptop over here that I'm going to be running RMS Express on. So let's start the software. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to launch RMS Express. And it's this funny checkerboard looking icon right here. I'll launch that. All right, this is the software. Now, I've already configured it with my call sign and things like that. I don't really think there's a reason to go into that. Remind me later about that, please. But we can look at the setup just for a minute. So here's my information over here, my grid square, my call sign, and that's really all there is to it. Now, why does it need my grid square? Well, it needs your grid square because it's going to predict what station is best for you when you start trying to connect to different nodes. So it needs to know where you're located. So this is the interface for the RMS Express. It's just like a mail client that you're used to. You can see some folders over here. I've got nothing in my inbox. The inbox is what's selected right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an email just by clicking this little icon here for a new message. And now I can put in the address. I'm going to give it my email address at Gmail. And I'm going to type in a test. This is a test of Winlink. And let's see, hello Cliff. This is a really handy and potentially life-saving digital mode. Okay, so having created my email, I'm not going to put any attachments on this or anything. I'm just going to click now, post to outbox. So now that item has been put in my outbox. And if I click outbox, you'll see this message. The flag is up, meaning it's waiting to be picked up. So now I'm going to open a session. Now we're using the WinMore protocol. This is the poor man's backdoor. This is what people with sound card interfaces use. I don't have a fancy backdoor modem. I'm not using VHF or UHF packet. I'm not using computer-based telnet. I'm using Winmore, and that's what you should choose. Having chosen that, I'm going to click Open Session. Now, this brings up a program that's going to do all the communications for us. I'm going to be reminded of that later. This little window here is what you're going to watch to see the packets that are flowing back and forth and whether things are being acknowledged or having to be resent. But let's forget about that for a second. Up here on this screen, this little window here, this is what's going to show us a list of a log of the activity that's happening. And this is where I can pick which node I want to choose. But first, let's go to Setup. So when I click Setup, I'm going to go to Winmore TNC. Because I'm using a SignalLink box and its audio drivers are this USB audio codec, I've chosen both of those for the incoming and the outgoing audio. And I've kept the rest of the stuff as it is. If I go back to Setup and choose, well, it's going to launch again, sorry. If I go back to Setup and I choose Radio Setup, you'll see I've got it set for an Elecraft. There's no KX3 choice here, but K3, I'm using my COM9 COM port at that baud rate. I'm using push to talk as external because the SignalLink is going to key the push to talk automatically. So that's that. That's how I've got it configured both for the audio and for the rig control. Now I'm using rig control here because I like having it just be able to click on a node and have it automatically change the radio's frequency for me, but you don't have to do that. So now that we've seen the setup and we know we're ready to go, I'm going to click Channel Selection. Okay, so what you're seeing here are the nodes that are sitting there 24/7 waiting for a Winmore connection. And it shows them to me on the basis of what I'm most likely to be able to hit. So the very first one in this list is WB9FHP, and he's on, let's see, 288 kilometers away. There's a path quality estimate of 57. Notice these are sorted by this column here. And so the most likely chance of me connecting to this RMS node is through this first one. So I'm going to just click on that. You can't see it, but my radio just got changed to this frequency. If you don't have rig control set up, it's no big deal. Just tune your radio to that frequency right there, the one that's on that says dial frequency. Not the one that's highlighting for some strange reason, but this one here, that's what you should set your dial to. And of course, these digital modes are upper sideband, so put your radio in upper sideband mode, put it on 7.074 in this case for my station here. So now when I click Start, and I just did, it's going to try to start a session with that node, and it did. You can see that it's connected. I'm going to bring this up here so you can see what's happening. So remember, I created an email, it's sitting in the outbox. I've just connected with this node, and now it's doing some handshaking. It's welcoming, here's the log here, it's welcoming me to this guy's RMS station. Tells me I've got 429 minutes left with this station today. I'm going through the Brentwood CMS, which is only about 5 miles from my house here. But it could just have easily have connected over the internet to Austria or Australia. It actually connects to them in kind of a round-robin fashion so that it just cycles through them all. So we're sitting here exchanging packets. You can see when it receives data here, and then you can see after the data gets sent whether it's being acknowledged or if I get a NAC or negative acknowledgement and has to send the packet again. This is not a fast process. It's taken that time right there just to get things set up so that I can actually send this file. Now, it's not a big file, it's just a small text file. I could have put a lot more text in there. It would have taken a little bit longer. I could have put a photograph or something in there that would have taken a lot longer. But, you know, this is not how you want to get your email every day unless you're out on the ocean or something like that. But if you're in dire straits or a disaster kind of situation, I could just as easily right now be sending the Red Cross a list of all of the people in this area who were injured and need medical attention, or what kind of supplies are needed, or medical, medicines and things like that. So this has been and can be used for real world, life-threatening situations. So my message has been sent. Now it looked to see if there was any other messages waiting for me from the common message servers, and there was nothing waiting for me. So it disconnected. It's actually disconnecting right now. And as a final step, it's going to send my ID in Morse code on the air, because we're required to ID every 10 minutes or at the end of each conversation, right? Okay, so we've completed sending this message, and I'm going to get out of this Winmore session now and go back to RMS Express. Nothing in my inbox still, but I'm going to go over now to Gmail. And in the time it took me to actually sit there and wait for this thing to come up, it already had sent this to Google for me. So you can see right here in my inbox of Gmail, I've got this test email right here. So there you have it. Now notice that it has my call sign at winlink.org as the person who sent me this message. That is your call sign. If you transmit, when you launch the software and get set up in Winlink, this becomes your email address for Winlink. So let's reply now. So I'm just going to click reply and say, got it, thanks, and click send. It says my message has been sent. So let's get back over here now to RMS Express. Let's start up another Winmore session. And I'm very happy with this first node, but before I go get my message, I just wanted you to see something that I probably failed to tell you a minute ago. So here we are. We can choose a different node to connect to a different RMS node. One thing we can do is to click this button that says update table via internet, and if we do that, it goes across the internet and it refreshes this table. Now what if I'm out in the field and I don't have a way to update this, and it's been months since I've used it? Well, don't fear, because these people in this list that are running these RMS nodes, they've made a commitment. So they're not just doing this for the weekend or doing it for a week. Some of these things have been up there for years. So go ahead and just try to connect to some of them. But there's a trick, and a cool trick is to choose this menu choice here, update table via radio. If you do that, it creates a special email message that gets put in your outbox, and the next time you transmit and connect to any of these nodes, it will go get you the updated table of RMS nodes and bring it back down and then update this table for you via radio. Now, but you will have to connect to one of these that are on this list. But again, these don't change frequently, so don't worry about that. All right, so let's get back out of this. I'm happy with this first node. We got in there right away, so I'm pleased with that. So let's go ahead and click start to try to establish a connection again with this node that we just were talking to. And we connected right away again. Now this time there was nothing in my outgoing box, right? I used Gmail to reply. So when I start up RMS Express, there's nothing in my outbox. And so when I connect to this node, there's nothing for it to send, and so it knows that I'm here to try to get my mail. And you can see here that the RMS node that we're talking to connected to the CMS in Halifax, Nova Scotia. While we're waiting, you might be curious, what happens if the internet goes down? Well, for the RMSs, there is a mode that the RMSs can use to talk to each other. It's a hybrid mesh network that uses only radio, and the nodes, the RMS nodes, can all talk to each other and route messages. And there's also a peer-to-peer mode. So like, let's say that you establish a link with the Red Cross. You guys can transmit messages back and forth to each other without going through an RMS, without going through the CMSs. So, by the way, we're receiving that email now. There's something coming down to me. So it's a very robust system. And even if the internet goes down, there's still a way for these messages to get through. So it's quite remarkable. And the guys who developed this and continue to develop this should have all of our respect. I know they've got mine. So we're receiving a message, presumably the one that I sent a while ago, unless somebody else sent me a message. But everything that we're doing here is in real time. So there's no shenanigans going on behind the scenes. Definitely takes a while to do this. The Pactor modems are much faster, but you know, they're $1,500 a piece. So I'll take free and slow. Okay, so we finished getting that message. Nothing else going on, and so it's ending our session. Took a couple of minutes to do that. And we're wrapping it up. Sending my ID now. And now we are disconnected. So I'm going to get out of here and we'll go back to RMS Express. Go click on Inbox, and there you go. There's a message there for me. And you can see here it says, "Got it, thanks." So there you have it. That is an example of an end-to-end Winlink session, sending an email to somebody, having them reply, and then picking up that email. Okay, so I think that's a pretty decent overview of the Winlink system. I left out a lot of things. I only gave you the information that was absolutely necessary to do what I've done here. So if you have any other questions about the Winlink system or how to configure things, anything about this kind of stuff, just feel free to drop me a comment and I'll get back to you soon. Thanks.